I'm a proud supporter representing Measure Y, Promoting Kids First. Our measure is going to be funded from the City General Fund without increasing taxes, not even by 1 cent. It's going to reorder city priorities and hold the city accountable for direct youth impact. With the creation of the Department for Children and Youth, the city is now going to have the infrastructure to sustain and expand services for children while establishing oversight, accountability over our tax dollars, and creating local jobs. Sufficient, quality, timely access to youth development programs and support services are often inaccessible to Pomona children, leading residents to visit neighboring cities. Can y'all stop moving it? It was fine. Visiting cities for these services or miss out on critical youth support altogether. A yes vote on Measure Y would create, maintain, and expand youth services such as childcare, housing and rental assistance for families with young children, after-school programs, sports, arts, and educational programs at public venues such as our parks, our public library, and community centers. This measure was created and launched by parents, youth, and community members here in this city. It is grassroots. It's been an 8-year journey to get to this point. Measure Y responds to the urgent needs of Pomona children for increased support programs and services to ensure that kids can get their needs met in their own city, this city of Pomona. I want to set the record straight as well. Obviously, this is a measure that has brought out, I think, a lot of polarizing messaging around the intent of what we're trying to do here. I've been working with young people most of my life. I know Eric, you can hear from Eric in a bit. The two folks up here sitting on the pro-right side, we have built from the ground up local organizations that serve young people. We're plugged in, I feel, when it comes to the needs and the things that our families are going through.
Informational effort to respond to crisis. And my goal today is to be able to really be explicit in terms of having folks walk away and understand how dire, how serious things are for a lot of young people and our families in our city. With that, I want to share some statistics with you, and I'm not going to do them justice because I have to move on, right? I'm on a time limit here. Roughly 20,000 of our kids in our school district are considered low income. At least 2,000 to 3,000 of those kids are houseless in Pomona. The overwhelming majority of our kids cannot read at grade level. The majority of our kids who graduate from high school in this city are not eligible to even apply to a four-year university. 3 out of 10 households in this city are overcrowded with 5 or more people. 2 out of 10 households in this city are led by single mothers. Being a kid, raising a family in the age of COVID, social media, economic and political unrest is difficult. It's something that, unless you're doing it, we have no clue what that experience is like right now. This is especially true for our Black and brown youth in this city. As we see teen suicide rise and rise, recently the American Psychological Association shared that roughly 20% of our teens have considered suicide. This is serious. Transformational efforts have to be done. I have dedicated my life to working with young people and families, and I'm here to tell you that Measure Y can bring us drastic changes that are needed for our young people to not just survive in this city, but to thrive. That's our intent. We're here today, I'm here today, because I believe in transparency. But I do want to urge everyone in this audience to do their homework. You're possibly going to hear messaging from our opposition that we flat out don't agree with. So when they claim that our city is already investing millions in youth, request actual budgets with line items. When they say this law is going to divert funds away from the city, parks, libraries, request the page number and the section of the ordinance that they're referring to. Question: why are powerful politicians that have raised our taxes in this city opposed to this taxpayer empowerment measure in which our community is going to have power over budget for the first time that I've seen in this city? Thank you.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Okay, so go ahead, you have 7 minutes for opening statement. Hello. I'm going to ask for your indulgence because I will make my statement both in English and Spanish. So for those of you who only know English, please indulge me. Y para los que nada más saben español, disculpas por mi pronunciación. Thank you for inviting me to speak. My name is Nora Garcia, and I'm here as a private citizen. I oppose Measure Y not because the underlying idea lacks merit, but because its implementation and funding mechanism are fundamentally flawed. The rigid framework of Measure Y would severely limit Pomona's ability to adapt to unforeseen crises or emergencies. In times when quick and flexible action is required, such as during pandemics or economic downturns, this measure would prevent the necessary adjustments to address urgent needs. A well-intentioned initiative should not sacrifice long-term flexibility for short-term gains, and I believe this measure fails to strike that balance. This is why I am a member of a coalition of concerned local residents against Measure Y. I'm not sure what you may know about Measure Y, so allow me to share some facts. Measure Y requires the city to divert 10% of its general fund on an annual basis to private organizations that offer youth programming. In addition to this cost, the city would be required to spend more money to create a new division to manage the process. A board of 15 unelected community members would make funding decisions about which institutions to support without accountability to residents or the time and expertise to determine if a nonprofit organization has met its goals and metrics. If this measure is adopted, the city will be locked into this obligation without a way out. Measure Y is not making more funding available for youth, is not about making more funding available for youth programs. It is a systemic effort to transfer Pomona's funding from public oversight within government to private organizations that may not even be based in Pomona. Measure Y is the wrong way to help Pomona kids. Measure Y is outsourcing the city's responsibility to our children, and when has outsourcing ever provided better services to the residents of Pomona? The outsourcing of fire, park maintenance, and waste has resulted in poor customer service and increased cost to the residents and businesses. The same will happen with Measure Y, as there is no direct oversight of how the nonprofits use funds and no transparency or accountability to the residents. Who's behind this initiative? Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been contributed by Bay Area special interest groups, pushing their political agenda at our expense. Over 95% of the funding for this initiative is from these special interest groups. How do these outsiders know what our kids need? Measure Y will hijack funds that are essential for maintaining streets, essential for maintaining and upgrading parks, essential for maintaining public safety, and essential for maintaining services children already receive from the city, like the library. In 2012, the city of Pomona was facing a budget shortfall, and the Pomona Public Library, where I learned English, was chopped. The library was sacrificed to keep the city financially solvent, and it shakes me to my core thinking that if this measure passes and the financial projections ring true, which were presented at a city council meeting in February of 2024, the library will be closed again. I vehemently believe that a strong and educated population creates a strong and prosperous community. I believe it because I am standing before you, a direct product of city programs like the library. I am against Measure Y because the primary beneficiaries of Measure Y are private institutions, many of whom may not even be based in Pomona, who will offer limited services on their terms without the oversight which is expected when using public funds. Measure Y is the wrong way to help our children. I'm going to be voting no on Measure Y, and I urge you to join me and other concerned Pomona's in opposing this measure. Support Pomona kids by voting no on Measure Y. Please indulge me. Gracias por invitarme a hablar. Mi nombre es Nora García y estoy aquí como ciudadana privada. Me opongo a la medida Y, no porque la idea no tiene mérito, sino porque su implementación y mecanismo de financiación son fundamentalmente defectuosos. El rígido marco de la medida Y limitará gravemente la capacidad de Pomona para adaptarse a crisis o emergencias imprevistas. En momentos en que se requiere una acción rápida y flexible, como durante pandemias o recesiones económicas, esta medida podría impedir los ajustes necesarios para abordar necesidades urgentes. Una iniciativa bien intencionada no debería sacrificar la flexibilidad a largo plazo en lugar de beneficios a corto plazo. Por eso yo soy miembro de una coalición de residentes locales preocupados contra la medida Y. No estoy segura de lo que saben sobre la medida Y, así que permítanme compartir algunos datos. La medida Y requiere que la ciudad desvíe 10% de su fondo general anualmente a instituciones privadas que ofrecen programación para jóvenes. Además de este costo, la ciudad tendría que gastar más dinero para crear una nueva división que gestione este proceso. Una junta de 15 miembros de la comunidad no electos tomarían decisiones financieras sobre qué instituciones apoyar sin rendir cuentas a los residentes ni el tiempo y la experiencia para determinar si una institución ha cumplido con sus objetivos y métricas. Si se adopta esta medida, la ciudad quedaría atrapada en esta obligación sin salida. La medida Y es la forma equivocada de ayudar a los niños. La medida Y subcontratará la responsabilidad de la ciudad hacia nuestros niños. ¿Y cuándo ha servido la subcontratación? ¿Cuándo ha rendido mejores servicios a los residentes de Pomona? La subcontratación de servicios de bomberos, el mantenimiento de parques, el servicio de basura ha dado lugar a un mal servicio al cliente y un aumento en los costos para los residentes y las empresas. Lo mismo sucederá con la medida Y, ya que no hay supervisión directa de cómo las instituciones usan los fondos, ni transparencia ni rendición de cuentas ante los residentes. ¿Quién está detrás de esta iniciativa? Cientos de miles de dólares han sido aportados por grupos de intereses especiales de la Bahía que impulsan su agenda política a nuestro costo. Más del 95%. Thank you for my time. I appreciate it.
They get the response time.
Okay, and now the support side does have 4 minutes for response.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Vasquez, and I'm a local youth advocate, longtime resident nonprofit leader. I'd like to take a moment to respond. So the statement about us outsourcing to private organizations and this fund doing that is just not true. I think this idea of having local nonprofits that are going to be leading the charge is the intent and the priority of this effort, this measure. And in fact, those local entities, those local organizations will bring a level of expertise to the work and nuance to the work because most of them would be indigenous in nature, right? So they'd be local leaders, folks like, that are in the community, well-known, well-respected, have very reputable organizations that would be vetted very well through this oversight, right, that's been established, who know full well and understand outcomes and data and expected metrics. Some of those things were mentioned, and so I think they would not be novices to those conversations and would be able to perform well to meet those expectations and would have a level of oversight and sure, have a level of oversight and accountability to ensure that that was happening. In regards to this idea of implementation being flawed, I say this very respectfully because I do value the work of the cities and I do value the investment. I don't push that under the rug, but I would say that the implementation that has gone on for so long in our city is not making the impact in our youth and our youth culture, particularly those who are most vulnerable, those who are on the margins, who are not being reached. And I can speak from experience that I've buried 35 young people over the last 3 years who, in my opinion, their lives could have been preserved. I know we're not going to reach every young person, but I think we can increase the support to support these young lives and open opportunities and eliminate barriers and bring a robust support to them so that they can be contributing members of this community and not just thrive themselves individually, but support our community to thrive. This conversation about possible economic recession and these trends being on the horizon, I do understand that, and we're not naive to those concepts, but I do think the city should and can and has the ability and capacity to have innovative thinking to start working towards those and projecting those challenges and start innovating ways to diversify revenue streams so that as they shape the budget in a manner that reflects their priorities in our young people, we'll be able to adjust and be flexible because of that early work and innovation and projections. And I feel that as a city, we have some work to do. I really, again, don't want to discredit the good work that has happened so far, but I think we can continue to grow in that area. The last thing I just want to talk about is this concept of, long-term versus short-term gains. I think because of the urgent, critical moment that we're in now with youth in our and the youth culture in our community, we must shoot for short-term gains with the long-term vision in mind. And I think we can accomplish both. And I think Measure Y is the beginning of those conversations and an excellent start in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, opposition side, you guys do have 4 minutes to respond.
Thank you. They made the point early in their comments that there is no new tax that is being proposed in this. Sorry?
Give me the other, there you go.
They said that there are no new taxes in this, and that's correct. There is no new tax in this. The measure will take 10% after its phase-in period, will take 10% of our general fund. The general fund finances the library, which is my passion, the police department, the parks department, the streets department. Where will that 10% come from? There's no new money. There's no new money, so we have to reallocate money from things that are it's already being spent on. This is the thing that they don't want to really address. They try to say it won't impact the library. They can't say it, because at some point, a city council, either a current one or a future one, will have to decide where that 10% comes from. I guess they think that magically the money will appear to fund this. We in the library community have been very concerned because the last time there was a major hit to the city budget, which was only $1 million from a court case, the library got closed. So we're very aware of our position in the budget. At only 1%, the smallest department in the city, it's a real easy one to completely whack out. Do we want to have less for street repairs? Everybody's complaining about the potholes in their neighborhoods. This would impact that. Absolutely, the money has to come from somewhere. Police, this would probably impact them. They have the largest part of the budget in the city. And by the way, this measure, that wasn't brought up. So, let's see, they mentioned that right now our children have to go to other cities. But there's no guarantee that the services will be in our city. The way the measure reads is it has to be nonprofits within the city or nearby. So Laverne, I take it Laverne, Claremont, San Dimas. But it doesn't say that it doesn't specifically say the services for our children, they have to be for our children, but they don't have to be provided necessarily in our neighborhoods. Let's see, they mentioned their organizations that they work for. And I want to make it clear, they work for them. They are paid from those organizations, and they will probably benefit from this measure. I mean, the money's going to go to somebody, and it might very well be their organizations, and there's nothing to say where it will go. The money is allocated by a commission that is eight youth and 7 adults. They're the ones who are going to decide on this new huge bureaucracy that's going to be built and who's going to be hired. They hire. It's not the city council or the city manager who's going to hire them. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do have some questions raised by the support side, and you guys will have 1 minute to address these questions. Actually, these items that you feel were not accurately brought up. So the question, or actually the statement given by the opposition side is outside organizations are privatizing these events. Funds. So do you want to go ahead and respond?
That wasn't brought up in my response. That was brought up in the
Oh, hi. I'd be happy to respond. With pleasure. My mic's not working, may I?
No,
They wanted to respond.
And then you will also have 1 minute to respond.
Sure, sounds great.
All right, so in the interest of transparency, I want to encourage everyone to read the ordinance. It's very interesting what folks can do when they try to interpret policy, and I don't want to twist things. So I am going to direct everybody to page numbers and sections to read, okay? So in regards to outside organizations enriching themselves, page 7, section 4C as in cat, proves that outside organizations aren't administering these funds. They are only eligible to possibly apply for funding. No mandate in the policy language exists to send funds to nonprofit or private organizations. That is simply not true. If that were the intent of us, we would not be creating a department for children and youth.
Thank you. That is your time. Nora, you can go ahead. You have 1 minute to respond.
Hello? Thank you. I agree. Everyone should definitely read this measure and see everything that is lacking when it is written by amateurs. There is no RFP process in this charter amendment. The city is required to undergo legal mandates like a request for proposal to determine which organization will receive funding. There is no such mechanism in this amendment for our charter. Truly, to me, it sounds like self-funding. And I speak from experience. There are organizations such as Sustainable Claremont, who use Pomona zip code, claim to have Pomona interest, and then gain money for their programs by using Pomona, and then do very little for Pomona. We have several of these organizations that call themselves Blank Pomona and have offices in several other cities. We cannot be used.
I do want to remind everybody on this panel that we need to refrain from name calling or accusations. So please keep it professional. Thank you. And then I also have one more question, or one statement that was brought up, and this was in your guys' opening statement, that this is going towards administrative costs, specifically Measure Y. So I would like to give the microphone back to either one of you to address that.
What is going to administrative cost?
Are you talking about the new division that is required in the amendment? John, do you have that?
I would like to respond to it. I could respond to it first if you'd like.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. So they said that there's no guarantees that this funding is going to go to kids, that's going to just pay administrative salaries. So I have, as an amateur, I want to recite and send you to a page and a section number in the ordinance again. Page 7, section 4D, proves that this will not go towards administrative salaries. Admin and overhead costs are capped at 10% as a means to ensure direct youth impact. If you read the goals, it's literally stated there. The whole point of this is direct youth impact. We've been doing this work for a long time. Administering it is difficult, but we're in it to serve. And the way it was written was to benefit kids and families in this city. Thank you.
Okay, 10% for that new bureaucracy, plus 5% for that won't go to youth, that's for reporting and for measuring metrics. Plus, each nonprofit that gets a grant will be allowed 15% of their grant for their overhead.
Where'd you get that?
That's in there. And also, I wanted to point out that there are two groups that are eligible for funds. There's government agencies and nonprofits. Those are the only two groups that can get funds. So when they say it's not going to be outsourced, there's nothing for keeping the money in the city. There are two organizations that can get funds. Thank you.
Moderator, can we discuss fact checks? Like I'm giving folks pages and sections of the ordinance. They're just saying these claims, but not directing the audience where to read.
Okay, so that is noted, and he's looking right now, and I will direct. We do have, so in the very beginning, when we first started, when you had your opening statement, we do want to respect your time. So we would like to give you 3.5 minutes back because the audience was unable to hear you guys. So that was a request from the audience. And then also we're live streaming, so there was also audio issues. So again, I'd like to give you the first 3.5 minutes back of your opening statement.
So thanks, folks. As you can tell, we're not in agreement. I just want to give context to this exchange. You have folks here, yes on why, who are presenting a solution. You have folks here, vote no, who are telling you to do nothing and maintain the status quo. We represent people from community that have built youth organizations from the ground up and are offering transformative, values-based solutions. Our folks here are powerful legislators that already have power over the budget and are intervening in a community-led effort. Lastly, I do want to address this. I keep hearing this is the wrong way to help kids. When actually, In actuality, the wrong way to help kids is to do nothing. Say no to this wrong way rhetoric that has a divisive and racist legacy of disinvestment and discrimination. A dog whistle tactic that my family, my community has had to deal with for a long time, that has been used against immigrant communities who have stood up and said no more. I'm asking everyone here to read the ordinance. This is going to keep funds in the city. It's going to transform City Hall, and that's why they're freaking out. It's going to significantly increase opportunities for youth in this city. It's going to save lives. It's going to bring prevention, safety measures to this community when all we have to offer our folks is intervention after people have been harmed. This is going to allow us to address things at the root cause. And guess what? It's going to hold our city government accountable to finally invest in the people that they're taxing at the maximum rate allowable in the state. Vote yes on why, support our families, believe in our kids who are going to actually be a part of the implementation of this measure, who have gotten us to this point. This measure has been the work of a lot of young people in this city, a lot of young parents as well in this city. When you hear that outside organizations have funded this, absolutely. I've been a part of those teams to write grants to fund this idea. This isn't an idea from a billionaire. This idea originated in the city of San Francisco, in Oakland, Richmond. They have Kids First initiatives that have passed. They have departments. We bring things from Richmond into our city and host it in the Office of Violence Prevention, yet we don't want this? Do your homework. Challenge them to show you where their claims are based out of. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go to the audience questions. And I'm going to start with, you just gave your statement, I'm going to go ahead and start with the opposition side. So if this measure passes, how can we guarantee that the recipients will use funds effectively for youth programming and not overhead salaries, benefits, specifically for the oversight?
Sure. Hello. Again, we urge you all to read the initiative. We think that your interpretation of it might be a little bit closer to ours. There is such a fundamental difference here that I can't even begin to explain. I think that it starts with this very simple thing. No one is saying children should not be funded. We're saying how this is funded is the problem. They mentioned Oakland. They don't mention that Oakland has over, I believe, they have 3% of a $1.7 billion general fund. And by the way, Oakland is about to be bankrupt. So let's see how Kids First survives in a city that is even more riddled with crime, with devastation, with need than Pomona. It's Oakland. Kids First has not worked there to fix the issues that I agree have been fundamental. As a person of power that comes from two immigrant parents that has struggled in this school district, was sat in the corner because I couldn't speak English, I do not disagree with the fundamental idea. What we stand here doing today is disagreeing with the funding. We cannot disenfranchise more of Pomona by this idealistic belief that we could throw money at the problem and it might go away. That has not happened in Oakland, and my fear is it will not happen here in Pomona.
Thank you. So let me ask the question again to the support side. How can you guarantee that the recipients will use the funds effectively for youth programming and not for overhead salaries or benefits specifically to be limited on oversight?
All right, so I already addressed the administrative salaries. I already shared that. So page 7, section 4D, Administrative costs are capped at 10%. I want to direct folks to page 9, section 9. This proves that this measure does have accountability and oversight. Through an accountability board that mandates a strategic investment plan, a transparent and fair application process, an annual evaluation by a third-party independent evaluator. All of this is happening within this measure. There's other aspects to how and who's going to get selected to do what that brings in participatory budgeting into this community. A concept that empowers community members to propose their ideas to be funded by their funding, by their dollars, their tax dollars. Participatory budgeting is something that not only can transform this city, but it could change civic life and foster new leaders and bring in new folks with perspectives that are frankly missing in our civic life here in Pomona. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is going to be for the opposition side. The measure sets up a new city department to oversee the funds. How do you respond to concerns that this will lead to more government inefficiencies?
I'm not really concerned about the government inefficiencies because of the following. It is a bureaucracy. In their general ballot statement that they made, they said no new bureaucracy. But how is it not a new bureaucracy if you're creating an entire new department? So in addition to taking 10% of the general fund, we now have to take at least 1% of the general fund, which is the entire funding of the Pomona Public Library, once again, to fund a new department to oversee this measure. And in the measure, please again, refer to the measure. City manager has no control over the decision of the 15-person committee. Because city council has no control over the decisions of the 15-person committee. They are going to hire, fire, and appropriate funds without supervision. Their final decision will be theirs. That is written in this measure. Please read this measure to understand what harm is coming if this passes.
Support side, I'll go ahead and ask you the question. The measure sets up a new city department to oversee the funds. How do you respond to the concerns that this will lead to more government inefficiencies?
Well, I think, the discussion about a collaborative effort happening between this new city department and this oversight that's established speaks to that, right? Another thing that I want to talk about is, the establishment of this department is necessary in our opinion because it doesn't work in the opposite direction. Rather, it's providing a more focused effort to address very focused needs in our community that we believe the city has a lot of room to grow in. And so it parses out this department, and we feel that this is necessary. This is not about rolling out arts and crafts and basketball for kids. This is strategic, and this is serious. So that would be some of my comments to that response.
Did you guys have a rebuttal?
Oh, sure. I think we found where our problem is over here.
1 minute.
So technical difficulties, John and I apparently printed out two different things. But in John's copy, page 13 of 20, which is the March 18, 2024 resolution number 2441 from the city of Pomona, it says on page 13, section D, which would be, it's a very long list, but it's section D on page 13 of 20. 10% of the Children and Youth Fund can be used for costs administrating the Children and Youth Fund in the city, including support staff, and a total maximum of 5% of the Children and Youth Fund may be used to evaluate the results of this article. So it's 15% that's going to be going into oversight instead of kids. And that 15% of the 10%, yes. That is what I saw.
I don't have the document they're looking at, so.
We must have so many copies out there.
This is section 1804, oops, I got my,
And we'll move on. Now we found out what we're messing up.
yeah, 1804 D.
You don't have those documents in front of you? Okay, that's fine. We'll go ahead and move on. So this question is for the support side. You are talking about outside nonprofits that, or there has been talk about outside nonprofits that use Pomona but don't benefit from Pomona. What about the parents and kids that have to go outside of Pomona to use other city programmings and there is not enough space in the city for our kids?
Yeah, I think that's the whole point. That's one of the reasons we're doing this. For the last 10 years, actually 8 years, I've been working with young people and helping organize them, develop them into leaders, getting them civically involved in this city. And in a lot of our circles, you'll hear these stories. Like, I wanted this type of service or tutoring or arts, performing arts service or participation in X program. I had to go to Claremont. I had to go to Ontario. I had to go to Chino. I don't come to Pomona for that. It's not available. It's not accessible. It doesn't exist. That's the whole point of this. We believe that the kids of Pomona deserve what the kids in Claremont have. We deserve the same things that the city of Ontario is doing, that Pomona's not. We deserve the quality that Chino has. And this is what this is about. It's about bringing that quality. I know folks are scared, but I've never heard of a city or a family go bankrupt because they spend so much money on their kids. So that's not gonna happen here. You'll see us in 10 years. We're all gonna be supporting this. And the city council is gonna reapprove it 10 years from now because it's gonna have transformed so many lives in this city. This is for Pomona people, by Pomona people. And the status quo is not liking it.
Thank you. So the yeah, I'm going to ask you the question again.
And again, I apologize. I'm the audio guy. It's not my day job. I've done my best. If it's easier for you to move closer,
There are seats
that
forward.
is one solution. I can continue to mess with the audio if you guys like.
Move them up, move them up.
Also, everybody, I do want to point out that this is being recorded, and so you guys are able to go back and view this in its entirety. So that is another option, or you guys can move forward. Okay, so the question is for the opposition side. There have been talks about outside nonprofits that use Pomona but don't benefit from Pomona. What about the parents and kids that have to go outside of Pomona to use other city programming because theirs is not enough space in the programs here in the city for our kids?
Thank you. I agree. Parents don't go bankrupt taking care of their kids because parents live within their means. Or parents take up credit cards and then they get into issues later on down the line. I don't know about you all, but I clearly remember when my sneakers had those little holes at the bottom, and I was so embarrassed that I did not want to run too hard or too fast on the blacktop because you could see that my sneakers were so worn through that they had little holes at the bottom. There is a place on the corner of Holt in San Antonio that used to sell $10 shoes. My dad to this day remembers the day he had to stop at that store and buy all of us a pair of $10 shoes. And it's his most embarrassing moment because he wanted better for us. So the reason that parents don't go bankrupt is because they live within their means. This measure would not allow the city of Pomona to live within their means. The city finance director clearly said in a February city council meeting with a PowerPoint presentation that this measure would outdo every good thing that the tax measure that we are currently enacted that has been voted on twice by Pomona residents would take us under. It would be as if Measure PG, the sales tax measure, had not existed at all. I agree, we should have more space in our programs for our children. I agree, we need to make sure that our kids are taken care of in Pomona. All these programmings and tutorings and everything is brought on, but we need to build a partnership with our Pomona Unified School District and make sure, as we have been through our Safe Outside and activity play, that more money is brought in for the use of our kids. Again, this is not about should we do this, it's about how are we doing this? How are we funding these programs? 3% of 1.7 billion or 10% of what I believe is in the year 2024, $161 million. You can't compare 1.7 billion to 161 million.
Thank you. So the next question is for the support side. Allowing a board of my majority of minors to oversee this funding or this Measure Y, how do you justify that?
Thank you. So just to kind of correct the statement or the question, it's not going to be minors, it's going to be transitional aged youth who would be providing this kind of consultation and support and oversight. And I don't know about you, but I know, and I have many that are actually here now in the audience, brilliant transitional age youth who are the future of our community and who are more than capable and filled with promise and have the level of intellect and insight, creativity and innovation to be able to move our city into the next iteration of what we're going to be like in the future. And as a matter of fact, I think that when we work with those young people and empower them and support them, they begin to create the future that we need because they have a pulse on what the community needs, because many of them are going to be coming directly from our community. And I have seen that over the last 20 years of my community work here in Pomona, have seen many organizations built on the back of these young people. And I think it is essential that they are a part of the process and leading the process, that they are not the minority in the process, but are the majority leaders in the process. And if we don't believe that as a community, that perspective is flat out wrong. And I think we need to reshape and re-envision that. And so many may not agree, but I would invite you to spend some time with these amazing youngsters, and it might change your perspective.
Would you like me to repeat the question, or did you want to go ahead?
I think I know what the question is. According to the charter amendment, there would be a commission. 8 of the members would be between the ages of 15 and 24. That means you would have the majority of the commission that would be under 24 years old, as low as 15 years old. And they're going to hire a hundreds of thousands of dollar manager who's at a city level. What experience do they have in hiring people? What experience do they have in knowing what is a good person for the job? What is their life experience that brings that in? These are the questions that we have when we're talking about that. Why we're going to turn this whole thing over to a group of people who don't pay taxes, who don't understand implications necessarily. Yes, they're learning. Yes, they are. I know when I was that age, and my children, when they were those ages, we had to tell them what needed to be done. You know, they wanted to stay out all night because it was great. We knew they had to be home on time. I don't know that people 16, 17 years old make really good life choices all the time. And I invite all of you to think back to your own experiences in life when you were that age.
Thank you. So that is it from the audience questions. We will give each side 7 minutes for a closing statement. So you guys opened up, the support side opened up.
I have a clarifying question. In the closing statement, will it be limited the 7 minutes to just one of the representatives, or can we both split the time?
So you both can split the time.
Thank
That
you.
is correct. Okay, so you guys opened up on the support side, so we're going to go ahead and go to the opposition side. And again, you do have 7 minutes for closing.
Thank you. I think that we can all leave this building agreeing. Thank you. I think we could all leave this building agreeing that we want to help Pomona's kids. There is not enough being done. We need to do better, but this is not the way, and this is our stance. This is not the way to fund this action. I have extensive experience working with community-based policy, so I know what an effective and inclusive process is. This is not it. Community-based policy focuses on building a coalition of support from within the community, developing consensus around a vision, and working with city leaders to make that a reality. When we banned no-knock warrants in the city of Pomona, it was a coalition of organizations from within the city and neighbors that came together to push the council for change. We got it done, and it was a better policy as a result of an inclusive, deliberative process. If you look at how this measure came about, one local organization funded early efforts and then reached out to organizations in the Bay Area to get funding to pay people to obtain signatures, the same way corporations like Uber and Exxon pay to get measures on our state ballots. Notice that the list of local organizations supporting this measure is not long. They didn't reach out. They didn't build a coalition. They didn't build a better policy through extensive engagement in the community, and it shows with their flawed policy. They drafted something independently, got support from outside billionaires, hired outsiders to go to supermarkets, and pressured people to sign. How is that community created or community based? We are all here. We're having a giant family disagreement, and we all agree that kids need to be all right. But we need to make sure that we live within our means so that the kids can continue to improve and not slide back. I don't think anyone wants to see Pomona go back to 2012, where employment levels in the city were low, where we had 30 murders in 1 year, not 3. That is our fear, and that is why we're here. They keep saying that we're scared. I'm not really sure what they think we're scared of or I'm scared of besides this. I don't want to see my city bankrupt after we have worked so hard for the last decade to be where we are today. Pomona today is not the Pomona of 2012. It's not the Pomona of 2002, and it's not the Pomona of 1992 or 1952. We are a different community, and we need to move forward together. Thank you.
I want to start by correcting something. I am not a powerful person in the city. I hold no paid position in the city. I'm not an elected official. So who am I? I am the coordinator of Save Our Pomona Public Library. Not only do I not get paid, unlike most nonprofits have paid staff, not only do I not get paid, but I help support these organizations. As a former president of the Library Foundation, we have a $1,000 give or get. So I paid $1,000 each of the 12 years that I was on the Library Foundation. All of the things that are listed in here that are the goals of this measure are admirable. I can't agree with any of them. These are the kinds of things I would support. And if this was a tax measure, I personally would vote for it and might even contribute to the campaign. But I don't want to have something going on here where we're going to go backwards on fixing potholes, on providing library services, park services, any of the other things that a city has to do. A city has certain things, the idea of the commons. They take care of the common, and children are part of the commons. But we have the city's budget at the moment is not rife with a lot of extra money. It's not like there's huge banks of money that we can just grab this and say 10% of it of all of our funding can go to one thing. And budgeting by charter amendment is bad policy. When I was on Charter Review Commission, a similar measure was brought to us. And we rejected it, not because it was bad, it was something bad for the city, but because it was bad fiscal policy. If you want these kinds of things, you do it through the normal channels and get it through the budgeting process. And by the way, I have been at probably most of the budget meetings within the city, and it doesn't have this big a crowd anywhere near. There are usually 3 of us at those things. So I don't know how you're going to get more participatory budgeting, but I haven't seen it, and those meetings are always publicly announced. There are Brown Act meetings, and I invite everybody here to come to the budget meetings when they happen in May.
Okay, so you guys do have 10 minutes for your closing statement, and you may split it up.
Mr. Clifford and Council Member Garcia might not recognize the power they hold, but I want to remind them and folks to be clear. Mr. Clifford served twice over the last 2 decades on the Charter Review Commission and acknowledged the last time we brought him a similar idea and did not help us. Councilmember Garcia has served years as a council member on the city council, and we've been at those meetings. They have not helped us on this either. We've tried building coalitions. It's hard in Pomona. And this was a last resort. We waited 8 years. This was a last resort effort. We would have much better liked it to work with our local council and commissioners that could amend the city charter, which is like the city's constitution. But we were shut out. So we're here today. Yes on why? Because it's going to save money and it's going to save lives. A real public safety strategy that is looking at prevention and not just intervention. I have witnessed the benefits of intervening of the lives of at-risk young people, at-promise young people, to show them another path. Quality programs for kids that keep them and the community safe. We've seen historically Pomona has underinvested in young people. This is the fight we're having. It's about how to spend our money. I've seen many programs defunded and just flat out stopped. The harm that happens in the community when that takes place is profound. When young people lose adults out of their lives, that is profound. But local government must do better, and Measure Y is going to do that. We can correct this historic wrong. We want to set the record straight too. This Pomona's budget for kids, what's coming out of City Hall, it's a fraction of what our elected officials are actually saying. Also, we've heard rhetoric about this is going to endanger the library. Measure Y can set aside more funds for the library. Education's one of the sections of eligible uses. This is going to hurt our parks. It's going to revitalize our parks. We're finally going to be able to do things at our parks. There's going to be adults running programs at our parks. Our parks are abandoned. What have we done about that? And now we're blaming Measure Y about our parks? Hasn't even passed yet. Again, Pomona's general fund has increased by $21 million in the last 3 years. That's because of a regressive tax a regressive sales tax that all of us pay. Our kids pay too. Whenever they purchase something. That's been on the backs of working class people in this community. This is the humane thing to do, but it's also the economical thing to do. To pay now rather than later. Why? Every day, and you heard it from Eric, we deal with tragic human loss. The fiscal cost of failing to take preventive action to help Pomona's children live safe, honest, and productive lives, there's no plan to stop that. With passing Measure Y, we could finally start exploring those avenues of prevention instead of just intervening after harm has already been done. It costs roughly $100,000 annually for a young person to be in a correctional facility. 10 times the cost of a program to keep a kid out of trouble. So why isn't just about, like Eric said, rolling out a basketball at a park or arts and crafts at a community center? It's a public safety strategy. It's about investing in our families, giving our families an opportunity to bond. How many of us have memories going to our kids, our nephews, our cousins, baseball, basketball, football games, recitals? Those are lifelong memories. That isn't happening enough in Pomona, and that is by design. I think I'll end there, and I'll pass it to Eric. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to the panelists, Mr. Clifford, Councilmember Garcia. It's not easy to sit on these tables, to agree to disagree, to have respectful dialogue, and to participate in things like this. So thank you for participating. I'd like to say thank you to the community and the public who have come out. And we really appreciate your presence and being open-minded to hear the varying perspectives that are on both sides of this table. I just want to end by just mentioning a few things. Yes, on Measure Y, because there is an urgent need for transformative action. I want to reiterate that. Yes, on Measure Y, because we should be believing in young people and our children and making that significant investment now rather than later, and believing that that is the best investment that we can make. Yes, on Measure Y, because respectfully speaking, the school district is an amazing partner and has done so much for youth in our community, children and youth in our community, but we cannot just depend on the school district and that collaboration to make these opportunities available for our youth. The city needs to have a greater investment and match the district's investment in our young people. I'm not saying there should not be collaboration, but we should not just depend on that as the majority. I also want to make mention that there was a year reference where there were 30 murders, but I wonder what the age range of those were. When you look at the last 3 years, all under the age of 25, all Black and brown young people. And so we really need to be dialed into the specifics of the loss that our community is experiencing. And unfortunately, those lives fall under the radar, and sometimes they go forgotten. I call them stupid deaths.
Thank you, Eric. That is your time.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here tonight. I do want to...
As we close, if I can take a minute.
One more.
Yep.
The entire initiative is on the Nueva Voz homepage. There's a link.
The entire initiative is on the Nueva Voz page. There is a link to the entire initiative so you can read the whole thing for yourself.
It's also on knowonwhy.org.
It's also on knowonwhypomona.org.
And Pomona Kids.
And Pomona Kids First. So you can get it just as it is. I want to, again, thank you for being here, but I want you to just take a moment and take a breath in. There's been a lot of discussions, a lot of questions, a lot of wisdom shared, a lot of heart open. And I want us to just breathe that in. Okay. Within each of us is our own wisdom and our own guidance. And I invite you to take in what you've heard tonight and let yourself be guided as to how you're going to proceed with your votes this November. Thank you all. And Saladin. And thank you, Renee. That's the game.